Good morning and welcome back to Old Wisdom Farm. We're here today to tell you about the little milking system that we built, and we put all of this together for less than $40. Now we did have the mason jars already, so we didn't have to buy those, but you can buy those for a dozen for $10. So let me just go through each of the parts and I'll tell you kind of where we found them. This is a handheld food saver, or a vacuum for sucking the air out of the food. And we got this for $20 or less, and we found it at Walmart, but you can find it at different places. It's the Food Saver brand Fresh Saver, and it comes just like this. It has a cord, so we charge it every night. And this little piece here at the top comes with it to connect to its hose. So this is what creates the vacuum for our system. The next thing you're going to need is some tubing. This is like fish tank sized tubing. It's 5/16 of an inch on the inside, and you can get a whole roll of this at Lowe's or on Amazon for $5 or less. And so when it wears out on the ends or something, you can just cut yourself some more. To connect the tubing to the Food Saver, we have what's called a barbed splicer coupling. And this is 3/8 of an inch. And what it has is it has barbs on each side, okay, so it looks the same on both sides, and we just shoved it into the hole of the Food Saver, and then we shoved it into the tube, and it created a pretty good seal all by itself. And this piece was like $3 at Lowe's, and to be honest, we had an idea of how to put this together, but we didn't know the exact parts, and we wandered around Lowe's putting pieces together until we found something that worked. So you could probably find something similar that would also work, but this works great for us. You can get it as brass or plastic, and it goes right into there, and then you take your piece and it just snugs right onto the Food Saver. Okay, so you'll need a second piece of hosing that connects to just some sort of medicine syringe. Now, as long as the end of your medicine syringe fits into your hose, this can be any size based on the size of your goat's teat. Okay, we have little goats, so this little medicine syringe works good, and we just stick it in there. Okay, so that's your system. The last thing you need is a punch to put holes in the top of a mason jar lid. And these washers are, let's see, these were 9/16 on the inside is the washer. And instead of being just straight flat washers, they have a lip on the top and a lip on the bottom. And so when you kind of wiggle them in there, they grip the top and the bottom of the mason jar lid. Okay. And I will have a link to this so you can see kind of what we're talking about, as well as a supply list for all of this on the website, oldwisdomfarm.com. So we used just a little bit of Gorilla Glue to make a good seal, and it looks ugly, but it works great. So to put this system together, you just put your mason jar together, okay, and then you're gonna put your two hoses in the top, okay. And the way this works is when you turn on your Food Saver, you get a vacuum inside the jar, and that means that when you stick this onto the goat, that vacuum goes from the goat into the jar, and it creates a sealed system. Now, just a note on this, you don't want this hose in there too far because it will start sucking up the milk once the jar gets full enough, and you could get milk all the way into your Food Saver. So thankfully, all these parts are pretty easy to clean, so it's not a big deal. I just don't want to wear out my parts too quickly. So like I said, this whole system cost us less than $40 to put together. And because all the pieces are inexpensive and easy to obtain, you can replace them as they wear out. For example, this we've been using for 6 to 8 months now, and it's starting to get a little worn out. You have to make sure that none of the gunk gets in the hole, or you have a hard time getting it to take a charge. But overall, it works really well. So on the next part to this episode, we're going to go outside and we'll show you exactly how it works on a physical goat. So here we are. We've got our goat on the stand, and we're going to use the milking system to milk her. And I just want to apologize. Our Tom Turkey is being a real loudmouth this morning, with my kids playing in the backyard. Every time they make noise, he makes noise. So I apologize if you have any difficulty hearing us. So we're starting out giving the goat a little bit of a massage on her udder, just like the way that baby goats will kind of bump with their noses and their heads. And this tells her milk that it needs to let down once it gets the vacuum system on there. Okay, and we start our procedure the same way we do with hand milking. We will clean the udder, and we like to use the Tough and Tender wipes for that because it's gentle and safe, and but also disinfecting. So we clean the udder of all the dirt. Since they are animals, they lay on the ground. And we will express a small amount of milk out of the udder because this milk was closest to the exit. It's most likely to have a little bit of dirt and bacteria in it that we don't want. And so that's kind of how we start. Once all that's done, we just hook the system up and we're ready to go. So we can only do one side at a time. But we'll stick the syringe on there, and it'll, a lot of times if she's had a good udder massage beforehand, it'll just start shooting right into the syringe. But sometimes you have to hold the button down. And as it builds up a vacuum, it will, it'll keep itself going. And you can see it's going right into our jar. And the nice thing is, this is a nice closed system. So all these flies that are out here, because we've got livestock, and flies are part of having livestock. It keeps all those flies and the dirt from wanting to get into the milk. And we still filter this milk, but overall it comes out a little cleaner than it does when you milk into a bowl. So when we first started using this system, our goats still had babies nursing on them, and because of the mamas hold back milk for their babies, we found that this system didn't work real well. But as soon as they weaned their babies, it worked great. Okay, so you may find at the beginning that it doesn't work because they're still working on feeding babies. We can only do one side at a time because the vacuum is not strong enough to do both sides. But the two big advantages to this is it's still a little faster than hand milking. Hand milking is difficult for me to do when I'm pregnant because my ligaments in my hands loosen up so much. I lose a lot of my hand strength. And it also means that if somebody comes to our house to milk for us when we're out of town, they don't have to learn how to hand milk. The system is very, very easy to use. So sometimes you need to go back and do some udder bumps again. And sometimes you need to pull a little bit on the syringe, just a little, to help that vacuum. And you can see it's filling that jar very, very quickly. We usually get just about a full quart out of this dough right here. This is Joy. She's, I guess, 4 this year. And she has her daughter and her granddaughter out here on the farm. So Joy is gives us a lot of milk, but she doesn't have the greatest support in her udder. I want to show you real quick. Her ligaments in her udder are a little too loose. You can see that instead of having kind of a gradual descent here, it's very abrupt, okay? That means that these front ligaments are not terribly supportive, and you can see by this kind of bulge here that she doesn't have great support in the actual bag itself. Now, she's a little lopsided now because of being empty on one side. You can see the side is empty, but she's a lot of space between the udder and her leg, okay? And if I lift her tail, you can see she's got kind of a V shape in her back legs where it connects to the udder instead of kind of a round upside down U. And that is also an indication that she doesn't have good ligament support. So while she's a very good as far as milk supply goes, I don't think that she's going to stand up to just years and years and years of milking. So that's just a quick little goat anatomy lesson for you. And that pretty much wraps up. We'll do the other side and kind of finish out what last bit of milk is in there by hand milking into the bowl. But as you can see, the milk system is very easy to use. It's very easy to put together. And yes, you are having to use a little bit of electricity. If you didn't remember to charge it, you're stuck hand milking the next day. But overall, it's one of the least expensive ways that you can put together a hand milker or a milking system, because a lot of the most inexpensive ones are still going to be $80. So please take a look at my supply list and click on my links to see exactly the sizes and the kinds of parts that I'm talking about, and put together your own little hand milker and make your morning routine a little easier and a little faster.